of the Audit and Risk Committee. I'd like to remind everybody that the meeting is being recorded. Unless by attending your giving your consent to that. To start with the minutes of the last meeting. And then Sunday, the approved for the committee. Any apologies?
Yes, Chairman, we've got apologies from councillors Zalappi and Fox.
Any from the floor? Declarations of interest? Okay. All right, our first report brought to us by Managing Officer Mrs. Hacks. That's the Annual Government Statement 2023-24, page 3 in your pack.
Thank you, Chairman. So, members, this is the usual annual government statement report, as maybe various requirement by the regulations that we produce at a state annual basis. The statement is set out Appendix 1 to your report. I'll just highlight a few of the key points from that, but I won't go through everything, but have to So the statement sets out how we know that our arrangements around the government are working and the assurances we have in place. So they're set out on page 7 of your pack, the various sources of assurance and review effectiveness. We reviewed the counter fraud and corruption policy in October of 2023 as required as one of the actions of previous years AGS. And the Section 151 officer has confirmed that the financial management arrangements for the authority comply with the relevant SICFA requirements. As members will be well aware, financial stability continues to be a priority for the council, and we have been able to set a balanced budget for a 3-year period, and that continues to be maintained. However, as members are well aware, it is a timing plan that is posted on it both by officers and in 23-24, the council reviewed the IPM and thought to make it truly integrated. So the integrated performance management brings together financial performance and risk information. We've been working on that to make sure that actually they all do link more clearly, and that is continuing in the current year, and a proposal brought forward to members shortly on how that is going to work going forward. Again, members may be aware that we are now subject to a number of backlog reporting requirements. There's a suite of forms from the Office for Local Government, and we're required to report on those. And next month we are required for the first time to produce a productivity plan. All this goes to the sources of assurance for members that the arrangements in place are working. There are always in the last year, we undertook a further corporate peer challenge for the Local Government Association to follow up previous ones again. That was a positive report looking at ways council operates. Staff survey was undertaken in 2023, and 96% of staff surveyed would recommend council place to work. That's an increase from the previous one in 2022 of 93%. So again, from a staff wellbeing and workforce point of view, that's an indication that we're keeping for getting things right. Audit and Risk Committee are obviously a key control on governance, and the committee meets regularly throughout the year and receives internal audit reports, system reviews, and quarterly risk management reports from the Section 151 officer, and obviously also reports from external audit. The audit plan, which you'll be discussing later on your agenda, being produced is based on formal risk assessment methodologies, and that's again reported to this committee on an annual basis, and then progress reports throughout. As members will be aware, in 2023, the council appointed new external auditors, changing from Grant, who've been our external auditors for a number of years, to execs. Seeing that as an opportunity for fresh challenge engagement with the new team from execs, and obviously they will be attending future meetings. Mentioned a full review of risk management is being undertaken, and again there's a report later on your agenda around the risk management strategy and the refreshed approach we're taking. The overall conclusion of the Chief Internal Auditor in respect of the audit was that there is substantial assurance, which is the highest level of assurance that can be given, which was pleasing to receive and consistent with previous years. Finally, members, with respect to this, there's the conclusion on page 17 of the AGS pack, which just sets out the actions that we'll be incorporating and reporting back on throughout the year. So the implementation of high-level recommendations made in the previous year. There'll be a further review of the anti-money laundering and whistleblowing policies, which will come before you in the autumn of this year, and the implementation of the external audit recommendation on internal audit performance information. And again, that's incorporated elsewhere. So, Chairman, that concludes the AGS recommendation of the support that do that.
Thank you. Any questions on that?
So just one more quick question. So this off log is the governing body of asking us to produce a productivity.
Well, the government are, yes. So off of the Office for Local Government requires us to report on a suite of performance indicators, and we provide that information in Oflog publish that. So that's an ongoing process, but then on an annual basis, we are required to produce this productivity plan, which is a new requirement. This is the first time this year. 19th of July is the deadline for submitting that productivity plan. That's currently being kind of worked through and finalised, ready for submission on the 19th.
Any other questions? In that case, the recommendation that Audit and Risk Committee support the attached draft annual government statement 2023-24. I take it we all support that. And move on to item number 5, quarterly Treasury Management Report, quarter 4. This should be brought to you by the Deputy John. It's page 19 on your.
Yeah, good afternoon, members. Pleasure to present the quarter 1 Treasury Management Report. Members will be, I think, by now familiar with the process whereby full council approve the Treasury strategy each year, which sets out the constraints on which, as officers of council, we invest and disinvest council's monies. And quarterly reporting serves 2 broad purposes. The first, which absolutely should be a given, is just assuring yourselves as committee members that we haven't breached any of those limits that are set for us. And the second part is often more interesting, is how we've performed in terms of our interest received and so forth, given the constraints of which we operate under. So the first part, very quickly, you set out to us is who we can invest with, how long we've invested in them for, the operational limits of exposed borrowing, and so on and so forth. And the report sets out how much we have invested in money market funds, and also specific investments, how long for, to give yourselves that assurance that we haven't been breaching those limits. As mentioned, more interest is that we can't guarantee at the start of the year, given us limits how we will actually perform. But it's been, I think, well documented by the full council and committee that we've benefited considerably over the last 2 years, I think, fair to say, from high interest rates and the fact we've had cash balances as a council. In the headlines of the report, just over the last quarter, we document that we made £288,327 just in the quarter in interest earned. That's against a quarterly budget of £140,500. In annual terms, the budget was 23-24 was 562,000, and as detailed in the table, just short of £1.2 million made in interest during the course of 23-24. A particular, and that is a genuine windfall to the council. The outcome report, it has helped replenish the general fund reserves of the council quite considerably compared to what it might have been had we not achieved that excess. And that was achieved without any compromise whatsoever to the sort of tenets of security, liquidity, and yield. A bit of detail around it on a couple points to note on the table towards the bottom of page 3. Some gets asked about what are money market funds. They're effectively, if like a trade-off, whereby companies like Federated Investors and CCLA, they contract with a large number of local authorities and they do investing on our behalf. It's a whole suite of different organisations mixing the various investments and chain intend to achieve a reasonably good yield. It's not as good as internal investments. What we gain there is liquidity. It helps us in our daily cash flow. We can, on a daily basis, tell either Federated or CCLA that we want to invest some money with them on a given day. If we've just received some council tax payments or whatever, or vice versa, if we've got a large payment loans going out, we can tell them we want to withdraw money from them. So that's the benefit there from best liquidity. Where it's the internal investments, currently with the Landesbank Hessen Frankfurt, where we get often the best returns, but they are fixed. We know when the date we invested, we know the date we're going to get money back from those. We can't tell them at another date we like the money back. So you always a trade-off. You gain liquidity, you lose in return, or you gain in return, you lose in liquidity. Members will also note that from our actual grand total cash balances fell quite considerably from 31st December to 31st of March. That's often a factor of the fourth quarter in local government. Again, as members be aware, for those who pay their council tax by direct debit, you pay from April through to January. And then you have February and March, and you're not paying out. Well, it's vice versa. Councils, you're not getting money in during February and March, same basis. So there's a natural drop off. The council continues functioning. They're still paying out all the monies that you do normally. You're not getting so many in. It then picks up again in April, May, June. What I will alert members to, though, is when the MTFS was set, we have got a capital strategy for next year that is going to draw more on our cash balances than has been the case in the past. So we're very much aware, it's part of our plan, that we won't have the same level of cash balances during 24-25 that we had in 23-24. And whilst interest rates are still particularly high, haven't come down quite as fast as some have predicted, we don't anticipate it making the £1.1 million worth in interest in 24-25 as we did in 23-24. We have still set a budget of 680,000 though, and we look forward to seeing the first quarter results coming out soon, which will hopefully give us the company we're on target towards that lower level we've budgeted for this year. So we're not expecting any pressures on the MTFS as a result of low interest this year, but visual committee, the windfalls that we had in 24 not likely to be repeated in 24-25. The second appendix to this report we do have a company called Leap who offer us advice for our investment strategies all times. They give us weekly updates on the state of the market, but for this committee they provide a more detailed examination of the economy both here and the other side of the Atlantic, what I think the headwinds are that we need to think about when we're making our investment strategies for this committee's information. That summarises the report. Then I'm very happy to take any questions that members may have.
Thank you, John. And members are asked to note the position as set out in the report. Take it, we note that.
Yes.
Item number 6, internal audit annual outturn report. By the report by the chief internal auditor. Page 31.
Thank you, Chair. So this report presents the internal audit outcome report for 23-24. This is a key report that comes to this committee produced by internal audit. So if you can turn to page 32 of your pack, this provides a bit more detail in relation to why we require the annual audit report. So as part of the public sector internal audit standards, we are required to deliver an annual internal audit opinion and to feed that through into the annual governance statement, which you have heard from Lorraine earlier on. Turning to page 33 of your packet as we delve a bit deeper into the detail. So as part of this report, I'm required to give the overall opinion on the governance, risk management and control framework for the council. I'm also supposed to give you the details in relation to how I work up that opinion for the year, and also a statement on conformance with the public sector internal audit standards. So just to cast your mind back in June 2023, the audit plan for 23-24 was presented to this committee for endorsement. And then during the course of the year, if there were any sort of major revisions to that plan, they would have also come to committee. There were no major revisions to the plan for 23-24. As part of our individual audit assignments and our plan systems audit work, for each one of those pieces of work, we do give an audit opinion. We have substantial assurance, adequate assurance, or limited assurance, and you'll see in a few moments what the outcomes of our work was. So in terms of how we present the overall opinion, we split the work up into core financial systems, other assurance reviews, and then our counter fraud work. At the bottom of page 33 of your pack, you'll see at 3.9, and it spills over onto page 34. We also report upon the progress of implementing high-level recommendations. So you'll see at the table at 3.9 that we're reporting on 11 high-level recommendations overall, split between 9 that were made prior to 23-24 and 2 that were made during the year. And you'll see the progress in terms of how they've been implemented. So you'll see that there are still some outstanding, and we will continue to track and monitor those as part of our Pentana audit management system. So looking at now the audit plan outcomes for 23-24, you will see in relation to the core financial systems, there were 6 audits that were delivered, and you will see that there were 5 areas that were given substantial assurance, and then there was an advisory piece of work in relation to debtors and debt management that was advisory. And as you would expect, we don't give an opinion when it's just advisory during the course of the year. In relation to our other assurance reviews, you will see at the table at paragraph 3.11, the work that was incorporated within this category. And you will see that there were 13 pieces of work, and of those, 9 have been given substantial assurance and 3 have been given adequate assurance. You'll see there that the management review of council policies, the report is currently being drafted at the moment, and that's likely to come out as an adequate assurance opinion. At 3.12, I'll refer to our counter fraud work, and this is supplemented. You'll see it's Appendix 2 in a bit more detail in relation to our counter fraud work that we've undertaken during the year. On page 35 as well, you'll see that we talk about the special investigation that was undertaken, and the full report came to the committee in November 2023. There was a cash theft at a leisure centre amounted to just over £2,000, and we'll talk a bit more detail as we head into Appendix 2. So in terms of how that all comes together to give our annual audit opinion, so across those 3 categories, we simply operate a pass or fail methodology. So if 80% or higher of the audits within that category score adequate or substantial, so a positive opinion, we would pass that category. So you'll see that for the core financial systems, that passes. Assurance reviews, that also passes. and for the counter fraud work that also passes. That's been given 90% because one of the actual fraud that was carried out, whilst it was low in terms of the fraud loss, it was just over £2,000. We have deducted 10% as part of my methodology in terms of the handling of the cash. So that's why it's not 100%, it's still 90% rating. But overall, all three categories pass, and therefore we can conclude that substantial assurance can be given to the overall adequacy and effectiveness of the control environment for 23-24. And this opinion is consistent with the opinion that was awarded in 22-23. The second part of this report refers to our own performance measures as an internal audit service. So we'll see later on within our audit strategy and plan paper, we have two internal performance indicators. One is in relation to the percentage of the audit plan that's being delivered, and one is in relation to our customer satisfaction survey results. And you will see at the top of page 37, paragraph 3.20, the results of our KPIs for the year, and our targets have been exceeded there. Also within this annual outcome report, we like to report upon performance against the public sector internal audit standards. So in relation to the standards, we're required to have a quality assurance and improvement programme, and that really does consist of three main elements. One is our ongoing quality assurance process that the audit managers instill and apply during the course of the year to all audit work that's performed, as well as the periodic internal assessment that I undertake myself. So once every 5 years, we have an external assessment, and that came to this committee. The results of that back in January 2023. In the intervening years, I undertake a self-assessment against the PSIAS and the local government application note. We also have our own sort of improvement programme as well, arising from the self-assessment, and the details of that is included at Appendix 3 of this report. And again, I'll talk to you about that in a moment. But overall, based upon the self-assessment, I am saying that we are 97% compliant with the standards outlined in the PSIAS and local government application note, which is pleasing to note. And there are no impairments or restrictions in the work we've undertaken during the year that actually stops me from presenting and delivering the annual audit opinion for the year. So moving into the appendices now, on page 39, we have Appendix 1, which relates to the progress for the high-level recommendations, starting off with those 9 that were made in the previous years that have been brought forward, and we've got the latest current status in relation to each of those. And then on page 45 of your pack, these are the 23-24 high-level recommendations that have been made during the course of the year, and then you'll see that both of those have actually been implemented already. Moving on to Appendix 2, which starts off on page 47 of your pack. This is our fraud and corruption outcome report for the year. So page 49 of your pack is a bit of a flavour for the work that we do. So as part of the annual audit planning process, we undertake a fraud risk assessment, and detailed at paragraph 1.2.2 on page 49 of your pack, you will see what the top fraud risks are relation to the council business. We give a bit more detail in relation to the counter fraud manager that's employed by County Council. He is an accredited counter fraud specialist. He has over 15 years of experience, and he oversees the counter fraud plan here at South Staffordshire. As part of his work, he also sits on various forums during the course of the year, and also is acting co-lead with Stoke-on-Trent in relation to the Staffordshire Counter Fraud Partnership. Moving on to page 50, and now looking at our counter fraud outcomes, I'll talk in a moment or two about the continuous controls monitoring and the NFI work that we do. But as part of our planned audit work, we also, as you would expect, and it's part of the PSIAS, we do look at fraud risk, and you'll see on page 51, the county fraud manager has highlighted those fraud-related recommendations that have been made during our planned audit work during the year. So you'll see there that 13 fraud-related recommendations have been made during the year. And just to update you further, at the time of reporting, 4 had been implemented, but Sue has done a further check today, and it currently stands that 7 of those 13 recommendations have now been implemented. And again, all the remaining recommendations will continue to be tracked until their full implementation. We also like to self-assess ourselves and counter fraud arrangements. So we're currently using Fighting Fraud and Corruption Locally, a checklist in which to self-assess ourselves against. The details of that self-assessment is on section 2, which is on page 57 to 66 of your pack. And we are concluding that we're compliant with 33 of the 37 standards. Moving on to page 52 of your pack and the continuous control monitoring work that we want to take. So this is where we use council data, and we use a data analytical tool called Audit to do various data matching. The idea of CCM is really to try and detect fraud and error, and to try and use our resources wisely and target those problematic areas or areas where there could potentially be an issue that we need to look into. So during 23-24, we've used creditor data, absence data, purchase card data, and expenses claims data. We've also piloted an exercise in relation to council tax data, matching that to electoral roll data to identify any discrepancies in terms of single person's list count. That work is still ongoing at the moment, and it will be reported back to this committee once it's been completed. Page 53 of your pack and at paragraph 1.5.8, this is a summary of the work of our performance controls monitoring exercises that we've done during the year. And again, there's nothing of concern to note in relation to those outcomes. In relation to the National Fraud Initiative 2022, this is coming to a close at the moment. You will see that on page 54 of your pack, we've given a summary of the work that's been undertaken to date. There are some matches that are still outstanding at the moment, and we'll continue to liaise with the service to ensure that they're investigated and they come to a conclusion. However, if they're not closed by the time that the NFI 2024 exercise starts, those potential matches will get re-picked up as part of that exercise, and we will ensure that they're included again in those matches to look at. On page 55 of your pack, this refers to the one fraud investigation that occurred during the course of the year. And again, the full report came to this committee back in November 2023. This is where there was a cash theft at a leisure centre, amounting to just over £2,100. There were various thefts on 14 days. That is currently with the police and has been passed to the CPS for a decision on whether to prosecute that individual. Again, once we have the outcome from the CPS, again, that's something that we'll report back to this committee. So that is Appendix 2 of the outturn. And again, within the appendix, you'll see the self-assessment, which against the Fighting Fraud we put locally. There are a couple of amber lines where we're saying that we are partially or in the process of achieving those standards. The first two are on page 61 of your pack, and that refers to our fraud e-learning package. What we're going to do there is part of a fraud survey is see how well that's being used, and actually to see whether that's also improved the awareness of fraud across the council. So we've marked that at amber at the moment. And as Lorraine alluded to as part of the annual governance statement, the council's whistleblowing policy is due to be reviewed June 24-25. So that's been put as an amber assurance at the moment. On page 62, you will also see there are two standards. One we've marked as not applicable, and that relates to statistics in relation to the reporting. Well, we do record all fraud cases, but that's as far as we go on that, just because of the volume. We don't have many fraud referrals at South Staffordshire, so that's being marked as not applicable. And then standard 22, which relates to the ongoing communications following any fraud. Once we have the outcome from the CPS in relation to the category, we're hoping to do some proactive communications across the council in relation to that. So that's just been marked to amber at the moment. Moving on to Appendix 3 then, and so as I alluded to earlier, as part of the main outcome report, I undertake a self-assessment against 135 standards within the PSIS and the local government application note, and here is the action plan. You will see that there are some of the standards that we're putting that we don't comply with, and that really doesn't quite tie in with how local government operates. So we're not planning to take any further action in relation to those. There is one standard though, which you'll see at the bottom of page 67 of your pack, a reference 4, which we've just marked as partially compliant, because there's always more that we can do in relation to data analytics and to really sort of upskill our staff and to ensure that use of data is used more wisely as we undertake audit work in terms of our sampling. So we have that as an ongoing piece of work that we will continue to hopefully improve during the course of the year. The Chair, I would just like members to note this report.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the floor?
No, I think it's a very good report. One question: if we were to look back and compare to the previous year, do we find numbers that are sticking there and not being resolved, or is it an improving picture year on year?
For the last few years, it has been a substantial assurance, hasn't it? So I think it's difficult to say, because every year the plan changes. You probably would expect we have, like in the 24-25 plan, we do a good helping of financial reviews, because they're our key big systems, and you'd like to think that they are going to remain as sort of substantial, really. What we'll come to in a moment for the 24-25 plan, there are some new areas that we've not looked at before, so whether that may give rise to more of an adequate assurance opinion, maybe so.
Paper reporting for the evening. So, recommendation to receive the annual outstanding report containing the annual internal audit opinion 2023-24. All happy to receive that. Item number 7, proposed internal audit and counter plan 24-25. Report to Chief Internal Auditor.
So this report presents the proposed internal audit and counter fraud plan 24-25. Turning to page 70 of your pack, this provides a bit more detail. So the authority for internal audit comes under the Accounts and Audit Regulations that requires that the local authority has an effective internal audit. One way that we demonstrate that is by having a robust internal audit strategy and audit plan, and that there is a robust methodology for setting that audit plan. So the strategy sets out how we formulate the audit plan. It also looks at some key principles that we apply when putting the plan together, as well as our resources. And also it sets out how we then provide and deliver our annual audit opinion. Appendix 1 was sent out separately, which is the full audit strategy and plan paper. So I don't know if you, I'd like to turn your attention to Appendix 1, which will be at, scroll right at the bottom. On either the app or the web pages, you should see that document. And you should see something like this. And that, yeah. Apologies, there's confusion over the idea. It came as the Appendix 1 audit charge slide. Apologies. So I will just make reference to the page numbers within this report, rather than the department numbers 26. That's all. So if you can turn to page 3 of this document, this sets out a bit more background to the strategy. So our work is required to conform with the public sector internal audit standards. And
Where do I find that in the agenda pack? And I've just scrolled to the bottom, but it was the draft risk management.
It's not in
I know it was sent out separately on email, sorry, I thought you said it was. So I might have seen it. Sorry. So I've got to the bottom. Oh, it's separate. Okay, separate. Okay.
brilliant. Okay, so if you can just think of page 3 of this document now. So our internal audit work of the year quite naturally should conform with the public sector internal audit standards. And our work is designed to give assurance to key stakeholders in relation to the achievement of the council's strategic objectives, the efficiency, the effectiveness of council operations, the controls in place in relation to safeguarding assets, the efficient and effective use of resources, as well as ensuring compliance with key policies, procedures and regulations. So the audit strategy and plan takes into account a multitude of things. Sue meets with BLT and the extended leadership team during the annual process. Sue also meets with the council's monitoring officer and the Section 151 officer to really get a feel for what the landscape is for the year ahead. We do an awful lot of detail and research as well, reading a variety of publications. We belong to a number of forums, as well as taking on board the contents of the strategic risk registers too when formulating the audit plan. So what we do when we assess each of the function and area of the council, we have an audit universe, and we sound snazzy, but it is a very long list of audits that we've conducted over the years, and we go through with the various officers reassessing a new score for that. And we take into account the materiality, the sensitivity of the area. We look at the last audit opinion that was awarded to that area as well as the last time it was conducted to get that cyclical nature of the audit plan. We also look at what are the links there are to either risk management or any other sources of assurance, because we don't want to duplicate areas that maybe are going to be subject to internal scrutiny during the year, or maybe subject to maybe an external inspection of some sort. So we take all of that into account, as well as the risk of fraud as well, when formulating our sort of hit list of areas that we want to look at during the course of the year. So the methodology is detailed at Appendix A of this document, which is on page 9 of your pack, if you wanted to take a look at that in a bit. But then we also apply some key principles. So we tend to want to provide coverage on anything that's given a high risk rating. So that is an audit risk index of 60% or higher, because we go along giving a score of 1 to 5. And then there's a formula that's inbuilt within our risk planning process that calculates an audit risk score at the end of it. It's quite a long, lengthy process that we end up going through. However, as you can appreciate, our resources are finite, so we can't do everything. So again, we do look towards seeking alternative sources of assurance where we can, so not to duplicate efforts. So like I say, if there's going to be an internal review conducted during the year, we may hold off doing that audit until the following year. We'd like to conduct a suite of financial systems audit reviews, again, because they tend to be the key systems that operate within the council. So we'll see in a moment or two that there's a good helping of financial reviews that we conduct. And we also like to give an initial allocation to special investigation time. If there happened to be a big fraud investigation during the year, we'd have a discussion with both the monitoring officer and the section 151 officer in relation to how we can accommodate that. And that may well be paying for either extra time from us or something within the audit plan may come out and the investigation will be substituted in. So again, we retain that flexibility to change that plan during the course of the year. And if there's any revisions to that plan, that will come back to audit and this committee for endorsement. And we also have our counter fraud work as well that I've alluded to as part of the outturn. So the plan for 24-25 is set at 225 days, and that's split between 193 days for planned systems audit work, and then the counter fraud plan work is 32 days. And again, I'll go into some of that detail in a few moments. You'll see on page 5 of this document the allocation of audit plan time against key council functions within the pie chart there. And then moving on to page 6, this is where we set out again how we formulate our annual audit opinion, and I've just been through that as part of the outturn report. So we split the audit plan into 3 categories: the financial systems, other assurance reviews, and our counter fraud work. And the methodology is set out here for the year ahead. On page 7 of the document, I'll refer to the counter fraud plan, and again, I'll go into a bit more of that detail in a few moments. In terms of how we deliver the audit plan, South Staffordshire provides in audit resources from Staffordshire County Council's internal audit section, and I report through to the Corporate Director of Governance during the course of the year. We have regular sort of catch-ups in relation to progress against the audit plan. We also buy in specialist resource as well, in particular ICT resources, to assist us with our audit work as well. And we have access to a number of different internal audit framework contracts that we can utilise to get best value. At the bottom of page 7 and turning over onto page 8, I'll refer to our performance and quality assurance framework. And again, that's a document that's required by our public sector internal audit standards. Again, I can go into a bit more detail of that. That's attached as Appendix D to this document. So I think that the main part of this report in relation to the content of the draft internal audit plan, and that starts on page 10 of this document. So you can start to see now the pieces of work that we're going to conduct throughout the year and the indicative scope. And again, this is an indicative scope, and as because it's set at the beginning of the year, and as we start to go through the year, things may happen, or scopes or focus may change slightly, and we're flexible and we'll liaise with senior management to make sure we've got the right focus for the audit during the course of the year. So you'll see, for example, we've got the integrated performance management piece of work. That's a corporate piece of work, looking at the revised processes for that. And then we've got under finance, we've got quite a large suite of financial audits that we're going to carry out during the course of the year. We tend to do those from quarterly onwards so that we can test a large proportion of transactions that have happened during 24-25. So they're likely to get reported to you towards the latter part of the financial year. We're going to be looking at corporate procurement this year, and one of the reasons for that is that they've got the new procurement cabinet coming in October 2024, so I want to give assurance that we've got compliance with that new legislation as well. Moving on to page 12 of your document, and this is the work that's going to be carried out under the banner of operations. So we've got work in relation to waste management, which will be a contract management audit. We've got some grant work in relation to the Disabled Facilities Grant. We've got some work within revenues in relation to refunds for both council tax and MDR. And we've got the new arrangements in relation to customer services as well, and the customer promise that we're going to be giving some assurance on. So again, we've got a good suite of work there that's going to happen during the course of the year. On page 14 of your document, you'll see at the top as well that we've got some work in relation to cyber security, as you probably would expect. And in particular, it's going to focus on third-party and privileged access. So we're going to be looking at that. We've got an IT specialist that's coming in to undertake that piece of work. We've also got 5 days assigned to giving some project support in the event that the council starts to look at use of other technologies such as artificial intelligence. We can give some support to the assistant director, maybe looking at some of the risks associated with areas if this is an area that's going to be looked at during the course of the year. And then finally, we've got some work on the UK shared prosperity fund as well, giving some assurance over how that funding has been spent and also the delivery against that program of work. Counter fraud plan is on pages 16 and 17 of this document, and this sets out the work that we're going to do in relation to counter fraud. So we've got some fraud awareness. Like I mentioned earlier, we want to do a fraud survey. We've also got our regular continuous controls monitoring work as well that we want to take. And we'll start to look at new areas as well and try and explore other ways of using data wisely, effectively, to try and pinpoint potential problem areas. We've got some time set aside for investigative work as well. We've got 7 days at the moment, but again, that can flex as we go through the year in the event there's any sort of issues. And we'll continue to liaise with our district partners and other county councils to ensure that we are working to best practice and are alert to any sort of emerging field risks as we go throughout the year. Appendix D on pages 18 and 19 of your pack. This just reflects our customer quality assurance process. So again, we have quite a rigorous quality assurance process. So the audit managers supervise all the audit work and they do a full QA process and all the audit work that's carried out at pertinent points throughout the audit process, and in terms of reviewing the reference, in terms of them reviewing the field work, and then in terms of signing off the draft report and the final report. So at various touch points, the audit manager gets involved. So Chair, I'm happy to take any questions in relation to that detail.
Yeah, not very thorough. Any questions?
Interested to see that you've got 5 days, well, 5 days on AI, artificial intelligence. Reading how you've written that, that's like if we want to use feature. Do you know if that's being used at the moment anywhere in the work that you're doing, or is that going to be part of the investigation?
We're going.
So the work we're going to be doing is going to be supporting, obviously, the director starts to look into that. We have at the county council, they've started to look at that, and I know that a lot of local authorities, a lot of organisations are starting to think about now if there are opportunities to use AI to enhance processes and allow us to use resources a bit more. So it's the assumption at the moment that it isn't being used by any officers to do any work at all.
With just exact structure.
Yeah.
I'm not aware of any particular systems that are using it at the moment. I think Andy's all the directors looking at putting strategy together and considering the areas that are utilised.
So I find that interesting. Obviously, I don't work in classes here, but I know it seems to be quite commonplace in I do work in public sector for people to use AI to answer emails, for example. And I wonder if that are you looking at it at that level of detail or purely from a processing point of view for things that work you need to carry out?
I think it would depend where the council wants to focus, because I know that Andy informed me about positions.
It's a fascinating area.
Yeah.
When you think that it can be worked in such great detail just on basic communication, which of course will impact everything we do. But I'll be really interested to see what comes out of the work there.
Alex is going to support that something, I don't know.
if Andy could come along at some point in the future.
Yes, Chairman. We're conscious of the potential for AI, but also the fact that it's an area. I'll be bringing a report to review and scrutiny on 23rd of July. AI is why it's being a suggested topic for a member working group. So members can have such input into actually how that's shaped within their signature and kind of where members are comfortable with us that and the parameters around that. So that will be one of the topics that we'll be.
I don't think it's something to be frightened of. I don't use it personally, possibly because I am a bit reticent and because I'm a teacher and I like things, what I create, and I believe that's really, really important. But I know an awful lot. I'm aware of a lot of communication that's going on in different areas that isn't necessarily generated by the person you're communicating with. And I do think that's happening at all levels, even at basic customer service level. I'm not saying it's a wrong thing, but I'm really pleased to see that you are looking at that now. But to not to have the assumption that it's just something that isn't happening yet and it's something to use, just maybe to see yourself.
Just to add to that, my experience in my day job, public sector, where we get a lot of forms in, probably something that we are using more than you might think as a council, and just some of the terminology is changing more from robotic process to artificial intelligence. As I started a day job in 2006, online forms. The online form would transfer the data straight on to our internal computer system with no human input. So that's a very low level robotic process. So it probably, I'd suggest, confusing ourselves. When ratepayers pay on the website, there's something similar like that. It's becoming more sophisticated all the time and such like.
That works.
Very good idea.
Three votes then.
Yes.
No other questions? In that case, thank you for those report. Actually, recommendation to approve the internal audit strategy for 2024-25, presumably approved, and then to review the proposed coverage of the internal audit plan and counter fraud plan. Do we need to review it? We have recommend approval of the internal audit plan, counter fraud plan 24-25 to the corporate director of governance election. I agree with that. Item number 8, review of the internal audit charter. Report of the chief internal auditor, page 93, back to
So the charter sets out the purpose, authority and responsibility for the internal audit activity. This is brought to you on an annual basis for you to go through. It was originally brought to committee back in 2015, and then we're going to do it on an annual basis just to confirm any revisions to make you aware of those. We have to produce the charter. It's one of the precise requirements. And at paragraph 3.2, it outlines some of the areas we have to cover. So, like we said, we have to comply with those standards, and this is one of the documents that is part of that. Within 2023, there has been one change, which is in relation to change in accountability. This has, in accordance with the Constitution of the Council, the responsibility of the Internal Audit Service has transferred to the Director of Governance. This was previously with the Corporate Director of Finance and Resources, but following changes to the accountabilities for the Corporate Director roles, it was moved over. So Section 8 of the Charter, which is at page 109 of your pack, has been revised along with other elements within the Charter just to reflect that change in responsibilities. The Charter does align to, as we said, to Precise and Algan and the latest versions of those. But just want to make committee members aware that new regulations and standards are being brought out for internal audit services, and SIPA are issuing their guidance in January 2025 for us to then implement from April 2025. So when this comes back to you next year, though there may be some revisions within there, we think it will just be some minor tweaks, but obviously we'll be reviewing and revising the Charter to ensure that we can comply with those new standards when they come out in 2025. We're just waiting for those. We've had some initial feedback in relation to what those will be, so we're starting to have a preliminary look now. So that will be brought to the committee probably around April next year, just for you to approve those changes. That's it. Okay.
Recommendation, consider and approve the internal audit charter for 2007. Goes to item number 9, updated risk management strategy for finance.
In the corner. Thank you, Chairman. Yes, you'll be aware that the council is quite rightly very proud of the fact that we've had a clean bill of health from our external auditors for the last few years, John in particular. But one of the things that they did recommend that we do is to look at our risk management strategy and our risk registers. So as a result of this, we commissioned a company earlier in the year called CINCO, who are linked to SIP for the Public Finance Accountancy body for public sector. And they undertook a review of our risk management strategy and also of our risk registers. And the outcome of this is an updated risk management strategy and risk registers. And that updated risk management strategy is attached to Appendix 1 for your approval. I'm not going to go through that in detail, but before I do highlight the main changes, I just wanted to make clear that the conclusion of the review that CICO undertook was really positive actually, and they made really clear that risk management does happen in the authority as a matter of course, and really what the updated risk strategy and updated risk register are about is ensuring that the recording of that process and the review of those risks are well documented, and that it's an ongoing dynamic process across the council. So the main changes to the updated risk management strategy are: the first one was there is an increased focus on the need for the council to understand its risk appetite. So there is section 4 in the strategy which explains that. And the importance of that is that actually that helps to inform whether or not risks are acceptable to the council at the level that they're at or not. So as an example, I always use myself and Lorraine as an example. We would in our statutory roles be more on the cautious end of a risk appetite, whereas we've got the commercial side of the council who will obviously likely to be more towards the entrepreneurial risk appetite. So that's one of the areas that's a new section within the strategy. The next area is there is a hierarchy that's been included in it. It shows the definition of what a strategic and operational and service risk is. But it also makes clear that it is possible for risks to move between those different levels. So it's possible that a strategic risk could de-escalate to being an operational risk or vice versa. So it sets that hierarchy out. And in the main report, there is that the diagram is in there as well. One of the main areas that we've really focused on in terms of the updated risk management strategy is some stronger language and clearer governance routes around accountability and ownership of risks. And so there is a six-step process that is included in paragraph 3.6 of the report, and that's a new step within that process. And what that means is that we are ensuring that all risks have a risk owner and a risk lead, and they are responsible for reporting back on those risks. They are responsible for reporting back on mitigating actions and whether those mitigating actions are having the desired impacts. The monetary values, so there is an impact descriptor within the risk management strategy, and the monetary values have been updated in there. It's quite an old risk management, it's just been updated to, as I like to say, to new money now. So just in line with inflation, if you like. And lastly, there are new templates that have now been introduced for risk registers and reporting. Those examples can be seen in paragraph 3, but you will see those more clearly when you start to get quarterly reports through this year to Audit and Risk Committee, and hopefully those will set out more clearly the current risk level, but also the direction of travel of those risks. And what we will also be doing is reporting not only the strategic risks to yourselves, but the higher scoring operational risks as well. So hopefully you will start to see the impact of this updated strategy and updated risk registers as you receive those reports here. So I'm not going to go into any more detail, but I'm happy to take any questions on the risk management strategy, but the recommendation is for audit risk strategy.
Thank you.
More of a comment and a request, I think. Was really pleased to read the report. Obviously, updated reports and this sort of thing is always welcome, but I've been on the receiving end of where something's gone wrong this week, myself and a number of residents. And being obviously the councillor, I've escalated that up. You know, how did this happen? Goodness me, how on earth could this have happened? All that. And what the outcome from that seems to be that two systems weren't speaking to each other. I think it falls underneath the service risks. So as in the same way, reading all this, it wouldn't be any better time really. Looking at the 6 risk process that you've got, having this idea of risk, what did you call it, risk champion and risk coordinator, I thought it was wonderful. Because what I found in my dialogue with the particular department that this happened with is that there isn't ownership. I was really pleased to see this was highlighted for accountability. It's exactly, you know, your external consultancy work has found exactly what we've experienced thinking for this week. There isn't that. And I would really like my incident, we'll call it, this week. I can go into more detail outside unless you particularly want it all recorded now, to be a case study for this. If we approve this, which I'm quite wholeheartedly do want to approve this, if that could be a case study to put it right following this, following the 6 risk step, because there seems to be a breakdown of why, or a lack of understanding as to why those two systems weren't talking to each other, which has resulted in effectively really poor customer service. We've had the assurance that it will be changed, but no detail. There hasn't been that accountability. So I really welcome not only the language, but the processes and the steps. I think the clarity, quite frankly, I think. So, yes.
Could you give us a brief outline?
Absolutely, happy to, because I did, you know, go into storytelling role. Yeah, absolutely. So this was something with street scene. So we have a huge, quite a large bank of grass, which we've taken over as a community 3-4 years ago. February 21, we got the eventual go ahead from county, district and parish council to do this. And we've done it in conjunction with the National Trust as well, linking up with their Sandlands and Heathlands project. It's a big project and there's quite a number of people in the village involved in it. and we look after it ourselves. This year, we've been quite time poor. A couple of volunteers haven't been in the best of health, and the weather has gone against us in so many ways. It's not just the potholes, but of course everything's grown prolifically, hasn't it? Weeds and flowers abound. But this is a wildflower bank, and of course it's grown prolific and it was encroaching on the pavement. So the request to street scene was, we know you don't normally do this, and I asked as the member to and having that link to the council, but could you please put it on your ad hoc list? Absolutely can. Can you just cut it back a metre just so it's a bit easier to walk down the path? Of course we can, no problem. This was in May. It didn't happen. The end of May, I contacted them and said, really sorry, we've had an operative absent. Okay, totally understand, la, 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 la. Another month has gone past and a resident on that road has complained to the council. This resident has also put their complaint on Facebook, but hasn't said their complaint to the council, totally understandable. We as local councillors have said, oh gosh, no problem, that's a community project, we'll sort it out, gone down with our own swimmers and sorted it. This week, an operative was sent out of the street scene and they have stripped the entire bank from top to bottom with all the biodiversity. And it makes me emotional just to say it now. The entire lot has been stripped, gone. It's gone around 4 different signs. The 2 signs say don't mow with National Trust and 2 other signs that are from the community in bright blue that say Pollinator, Paradise, Kinder Parish Council, National Trust. The person that's done it has trimmed around those signs. Of course, people in the village took photographs, it went all over Facebook. We as councillors have gone, no, this was an error, this is a reputational damage limitation from the council's point of view, which is why I've been in close contact with Bob Taylor this week about it. But then having asked, how has this happened? What are you going to do? The one line that just says, oh, we're really sorry, it was an error, it won't happen again. It just isn't over 4 years. And I would really like to go back to the president. It's not going to happen again because they've identified this, this happened, that's going to be put into place and what have you. My takeaway from it is one person's complained, that's gone on one list. One team has dealt with that. They haven't checked it with the other team that's got a list of work across the whole district. It's not just in because Andy Aston has shared that in detail, and also how it's gone on throughout the last couple of months, and also his delays. He's been really transparent in that talk. The 2 teams haven't talked together. That was a very short job, but I think you've got the picture. So this is wonderful, Rebecca, really. I think that's exactly the kind of thing that your report's hoping to address, really, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We can take that one on conversations about it. But yeah, it's absolutely about making sure that there's a coordinated approach to risk management across the council. So
That's very broad. Sometimes I think it does help them. Actually, what would you do in this situation? Would you have happening to me? Because in this particular case, I'm sure there's lots of solutions. Same thing happened to me about 6 years ago. For some reason they came all the way. So the weed killed the whole lot. A bit.
Yeah, I nearly
You
cried.
don't know if it's going to happen again, but I don't know how we
Because we're working in conjunction with National Trust and they're doing the verges, they're really, really concerned that there's a problem. What if one resident complains about that and it's not joined up, if the dots aren't joined up with other things that are going
Can I
on?
have make a suggestion at the next meeting when the risk register present, we sort of highlight where that would come into it and what procedures in there.
Yeah,
That would-
like a
that-
case
that
study,
particular
take that and
case,
then
yes.
what
I
we've
think
done to
Not the
mitigate it.
maintenance of, but part of looking at the risk register next time. We'll have a discussion.
I think that's really great.
Any other comments on? I think it's certainly a big improvement. And we quite a good risk register. It's obviously a lot better, and that we're just going to keep on working at this. No more comments. Recommendations. Recommended that members of the Audit and Risk Committee approve an updated risk management strategy.
Yeah.
And that brings us to item number 10, 2024-25 work programme. Quarterly Director of Finance and Section 151 Officer, Corporate Director of Governance and Monitoring Officer. Page 145.
Chairman, so just very briefly, members, as always, this is the advert programme. As I say, this year I'll be using up and change every year, but this is the proposed work plan for the committee. So this is some idea of the meeting as to variably year, but the basis of reporting. Again, that assurance to get oversight to it.
Thank you. Recommendation. Recommended members review and support the programme of work for the Audit and Risk Committee and set out to the company. So, in favour of that? Thank you. Right, well, I'll close the meeting now.
Quarter to 12.
Yes, thank you very much for everybody coming.